Got a Jackson Randy Rhodes V here with some accoutrements on the top. Anyway, I'm just fitting a new nut to this one. Problem that the owner had with this was the original nut, which is this one here, was just come loose and sitting in the slot like that. That's due to just the way the headstock is shaped and where the machine heads are. So like your these crappy strings are just on here until I finish slotting the nut. Then I'll replace it with some new strings and give it a clean and a setup and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, what happens is the angle of that string is just always pulling force on that, and you know the other strings as well. Sort of nearly all of them put force on the nut, which will pull it that way. And so this one had come loose. So one thing I found with this was it wasn't a great fit. So when I got it in, I sort of just squared it up a bit and just on the bottom, and got the rock out of it and stuff, and found that it was actually a little bit too low, and it's previously been shimmed before. So we've got a new one here. This is I've sort of shaped it roughly. I haven't polished it or slotted it yet, but as you can see, I've fitted this one to fit snugly in that slot. There's just some glue debonder there. There's some super glue from the last tech. I need to polish that little area of the fingerboard too that's been marked up by whoever put this nut in or repaired that nut last. Anyway, so this nut fits in with some friction on it, and it sits snug in that gap. And it doesn't rock, and it sits square in the slot there, so, and it doesn't move. Ideally that's what you want. You want a snug fit there so the nut can't move. And then on top of that, also just created some little reliefs. You can barely see them, make them out. Maybe if I put it up to the light. No, it won't really focus on that. But I've created some divots in there, so when we fit that nut and actually glue it in, so we'll just put a couple of drops of CA super glue on the nut and fit it against glue it to the end grain of the fingerboard so it doesn't tear the grain up. But in addition to this, because it has so much force on it all the time, I'm also going to use just a couple of tiny drops of Titebond on the bottom, and when it bonds to the neck and the nut with that relief in there, it'll create a little bit of extra resistance against moving that way. And like I said, it fits in there, so when I'm pressing on it, I can't actually physically move it, which means it's going to be a pretty good fit. So this other one here, which has come in, you can actually see it was probably done in a bit of a hurry, which happens sometimes. But what's happened is it's quite loose in there. So even at the end here where it's wider, there's still quite a lot of clearance. Like I said, I cleaned up the bottom of it so it wouldn't move, but we've got quite a lot of movement on the other side. It's not a snug fit, so it was bound to come loose eventually, especially, you know, if it gets a knock or just time, something like that. Fingers over the lens. So just to demonstrate that, I've just got my cheap calipers, and I'm doing this one-handed because I'm a bloody idiot. And so we've got 5.1 mil there, then the other side it's 5.5 mil, and then actual slot is closer to 6 mil. So we've probably like 5.9-ish, something like that, or 5.85 from memory. So we've got that one looking at 5.8, and then in the middle 5.91, 5.9. And this one ended up a little bit skinnier. Maybe not. 5.9, 0.89. So yeah, that's within 0.01 or 0.02 of clearance, and it's pretty easy to make sure you keep your, so you do your rough fitting on a disc sander or a linisher or something like that. And I just take a block with some coarse grit on it when I'm doing the final thing, and then just every few passes or so, just measure each end of it in the center, make sure it's staying within, you know, a good amount of level, and then I can get the rock out of the bottom of the nut by using this. This is actually a fret leveling beam, but because it's flat, I've got some higher grade grit on it. I can just run that on there. Use one hand to hold it or put it in a vise, and then use your other hand and apply pressure on it in the right spots. If it's pretty rocky in the middle, one thing I found that works really well is just use a straight file and file out the middle of it until it's almost, you've almost got a slight concave. That way you've got two reference points on there to get it flat. Otherwise, if you have a big rock in the middle, it's hard to actually get it flat. It's because your hand will naturally want to rock it a little bit as it goes. So it's easier when you've got two contact points on the outer edges to get it down to flat from concave than the other way. Anyway, those are some tips I've learned the hard way over the years. Hope that was useful.